On July 24, 2021, the world lost the highest time F-14 aviator, considered one of the greatest Tomcat pilots of all time. Snort will forever be remembered as the one who feared no death and pushed the boundaries of what was possible in the cockpit of the F-14 Tomcat, leaving an indelible mark on the history of tactical aviation.
Okay, Snort, you're ready to go.
Okay. And how would you like to start?
Yeah, just introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. All right.
And let's go right into the story.
All right. I am Dale Snort Snodgrass, retired Navy captain, long time, one of the first Tomcat babies out of the training command to go into the airplane. And then I spent my life and my joy of my Navy career flying the mighty Tomcat. I first met it when my father was a test pilot at Grumman. So when I was in high school, I went out and went to Grumman at Bethpage, and they had a full mock-up of the F-14. And I saw it in the special lighting and hangar and everything. They were trying to sell the airplane, et cetera. And I said, holy shit. Wow, what a great airplane. The Tomcat is unique. That's why you guys are doing this video, because it has a presence, it has panache. And when you see that airplane, you know it's something like that has never been around and probably won't be around again. So I had the joy of flying it for 26 years. Or 24 years, I take that back, 24 years, and wound up being the high time Tomcat pilot with almost 5,000 hours in it. So it was a privilege and an honor for me to be involved with the Tomcat for all that time. But the thing that made the Tomcat wonderful is the community. Everybody we had a bunch of characters beyond belief, and the community just developed unto itself and brought out spontaneity and fun and some bizarre attitudes and craziness on occasion, but that was all part of flying a wonderful airplane. For me, it was just a joy, and I had good times and bad times with the machine. One of my most memorable, scariest moments was in the North Atlantic. I got launched as an alert to go intercept a bear up near the off the Scandinavian coast, Norway. And this bear came out, and the seas were horrible. It was blowing 45 knots, and we had 30-foot seas, and literally blue water over the deck, and I'm having to stand on Alert 5 on the Cat, and the call comes down, launch the Alert 5. I only had about 20 minutes left for somebody else to relieve me, but anyway, so I launch off in the Cat. You had to time it so when you go down the Cat, you're getting shot on the upstroke of the bow. So that was no problem. Go out, intercept the bear, come back, fly around the ship with that, and the weather was pretty crappy, maybe 800 over, but we got down below the clouds, and he came by the ship low, and you had to position yourself on the inside of him, so when they're taking pictures of the carrier, you always see a Tomcat in the picture. So I did all that without any issue. Then it came back time to land. The deck's going up and down 30 plus feet, rolling, pitching of unbelievable events. I came around. Took me 13 passes to trap. I got waved off 12 times not because I was bad. I might have been bad, but the bottom line, the deck was not capable of taking me at the time. It was just moving too much. Think of 30 foot up and down and rolling. So that alone was a tense time. But that was not what really got me scared. Is when I did trap, I caught the 4-wire and came to a stop. Like you go to full power to mill power, then you bring the throttle back, and then they pull you back with the cable, and then they raise the hook. And then as soon as I raised the hook, the ship heeled to the left about 3 to 4 degrees, maybe 5 degrees. And then I started sliding left. Full brakes, nothing I could do. I couldn't, and its deck was so slippery, so I'm sliding left, and I said, this is really bad, because if I get to I wound up getting within about 3 or 4 feet of the deck edge. And my choices were stay with the airplane, or potentially if it goes over the side to eject, but if I ejected, or we ejected, or Rio and myself ejected, you'd be in 45 knot winds with 30 plus foot seas, and that would not have a good outcome. And then obviously you stayed with the jet, then you would be in peril also. So bottom line was, King Neptune had blessed me at that point, and we rolled back the other way. So we went to the right, and I started sliding, and I went almost to the island, and guys were throwing chains on the airplane. the airplane is so heavy that it was breaking chains as they were trying to tie us down while I'm moving. One chain broke a young blue shirt up there, broke his leg. So I was very, I went and saw him and then went down in sick bay. But I mean, there was a lot of guys tried to really help me out. But the bottom line, we got over to the right side of the landing area and settled out enough, and they got me chained, and that was that. So that was probably the time I remember as being the most fearful, because I didn't have any choices. I ran out of options for myself. I just had to go with the ride, so to speak. So that was that one. Other than that, some of the most fun flying I did, aside just flying the fighter and being 1v1s and BFM, etc., is my airshow career with the Tomcat was awesome. For whatever reason, I was lucky enough to be on and off, not continually, but on and off the Tomcat demo pilot for almost 12 years through the span, and then finishing up even as the Commodore, as the wing commander at Oceana's, fighter wing commander for the Atlantic Fleet. I was able to set up my own airshow team, and I had 2 demo guys who were flying demos also, so I had decided there should be a third one with me as the pilot. And that was a year I did the spin-off of the Flight of the Grumman Cats, and we did the Flight of the Twin Cats. And that was with John Ellis in the Kalamazoo Aviation History Museum, their Tiger Cat. And it was an awesome time because we did something that had never been done, and to this date hasn't been done, was that we actually did section formation, warbird and a jet fighter, F-14, a Tomcat and a Tiger Cat. We actually did aerobatics in our air show. So I flew out to Battle Creek with the Tomcat for a few days, and John and I practiced at Battle Creek. We had the box there. We got FAA sign off, and then we went off and did, I think, 13 shows that year as the Flight of the Twin Cats. So that was a very, very special time in my life. What else?
That's sweet. Okay, how about can you talk about the famous picture that's all over the internet?
I certainly can.
How that?
I certainly can. So as probably everyone knows, or in the Tomcat world knows, I'm fairly infamous in the fact that there's a photo out there of me doing a knife edge pass by the LSO platform. And there's a lot of the statements say, well, I got in trouble and the pilot got in trouble and it's grounded, and that's not the case at all. It was actually the opening move to my airborne, or my seaborne, my at-sea demo, flight demo. And it was actually designed, and first saw it done by a guy named Ed Andrews, Hunyak, who's now passed away, but he was a great fighter pilot, and he started his show with that knife edge pass. And so how you do that is you get behind the carrier, off on the starboard quarter over here, about flight deck level, and then you come in at about half a mile, you're going like 250 knots, and then half a mile out, go to full grunt, go up to full AB, come by, and then as you approach the flight deck, you just come right around here. And as you know, the angled deck, you come up and then it comes in and then the bow comes like this. So there's actually a lot of room up here. So it doesn't look like it looks like I'm about to hit the ship, but I really wasn't. So you just come by like that. It's very dramatic because this happened to be on the USS America in 1989, and we were off Norfolk on a Independence Day cruise. So I was launching off the beach to do this air show and then going back to the beach as opposed to trapping on the boat. So I came out and the people are up on the bow, all the dependents are up on the bow near Cat 1 and Cat 2, and the LA, the landing area, was open. So I came by, so bottom line is, they don't know I'm coming. They don't see me. They hear me, and then all of a sudden the airplane shows there. So very dramatic entry, and I like drama. So anyway, I came by, and then as soon as I came across the fantail and the LSO platform and the angled deck there, then went wings level. I think it was into an Immelman or something like that. So then right into the vertical and the rest of the show. And the reason I love ship demos is because on a field, at an airport, at a normal air show, you have show lines. So for a Tomcat, any kind of turbine jet, fighter, you use a 1,500-foot show line. Sometimes it's 1,200 feet, it's 15. So you're a long way away from the crowd. But the ship, the port side of the ship is the show line. So I got away with a lot of stuff at that time. So it was a great experience, and I did that multiple times. And there are a number of photos out there that capture the same pass, but not quite as dramatic as the one that hit the internet. The funny story about the photo was, I did the show, I land, the next day we actually go on the ship to go out to sea for about a 1 month period or something, a couple, 3 weeks workups. And I will go in there and I'm in the ready room and I'm the XO of VF-33 at the time. And my ops officer comes in and he goes, "Snort, you can't believe this. Look at this picture." And it was taken by a third-class bosun's mate who worked the arresting gear. And he was over by the island and just happened to take the picture, iconic picture, and that was that. So he goes to me, my ops officer goes, XO, look at this. I said, holy shit. He said, tell you what. And he said, the guy gave me the negative. I said, well, go make 50 copies and then burn the negative, because it's going to be, I knew it would, somebody got held to this thing, I would be then on the carpet, you know, why'd you do that and all that stuff. But it was already blessed. The Air Wing commander happened to be, the CAG at the time happened to be Jay Johnson, who shortly became CNO. So it was a good, I had a good excuse and all that, but the bottom line was I knew it would cause problems downstream. So little did I know, we made 50 copies, and that 50 copies became 50 more copies, and then 50 more copies, and 50 more copies, and then eventually the internet happened, and then it's followed me for the rest of my life. So, and the guy that did it, I can't remember his name. I actually got a bunch, and I was signing them, and this guy was, this company was selling these pictures with it, and but anyway, he sued me. The guy who took the picture sued me. So, so it's a crazy story, but we all got it all settled, and it's all fun.
That's awesome. Okay, there's last two questions, because I want to hear it from the guy, the lead Tomcat, our guy.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite, and what was the favorite thing about the Tom? What was your least favorite thing about the Tom?
My favorite thing about the Tomcat was just, I mean, I just loved the whole thing about it. I just loved walking out to it. I loved, except occasionally on the boat in a bad night and all that. Maybe I was not so happy to go up there, but most of the time I just loved going out to that airplane and just looking at it and walking around it. I don't know. I mean, I have a great, you know, one of the most memorable flights, the thing I loved is being one of the first guys out of the training command to go to Miramar and fly it at Miramar with VF-124. And my first flight, when you know you're in the right place and you're in the right job, and you're so happy to be what you are, I'm out there, and it takes about 45 minutes to get this Tomcat out of the line. You know, spoilers, you have to reset computers and get it all going, and we finally make it out. And I think, and my Rio is a pilot, because the first FAM 1s and 2 you fly with a pilot in the back seat, which is the pilot's least favorite flight, by the way, because I did that a bunch of times as a RAG instructor, and I was not happy doing that, but that's so be it. But I think I fly out with this Sheik was his call sign. Anyway, he's in my back seat, and he's a really good fighter pilot. Wound up flying MiGs up in the desert shortly after that. But the bottom line was, I go out, and we taxi down the whole shore to Miramar. And they had these final checkers at Miramar, where you actually had to have, there were base final checkers. So every jet got a final check just before it went on the runway. So I taxi out Tomcat, and I'm the only Tomcat out there, and I'm behind 2 FAs from VF-194, which was a very cool airplane, and was my second choice if I didn't get Tomcats out of the flight school. Anyway, then there's about 10 F4s. So they all F4s. We keep doing this little moving up the whole short line as the guys low. We just continue to move up, and finally get to the point where I'm number 2 for takeoff, because there's 2 FAs who go in front of me. And these guys are, the F8 guys back then were like my heroes. Had long handlebar mustaches. The hair was always long. They wear cowboy boots instead of regular stuff. And there's this guy in the whole short next to me in his F8. As he's sitting there waiting, he has a cigarette. He's going, and then he goes, takes the cigarette. They get cleared to take off. He goes, takes it on the side of the airplane, goes, and then goes over to me. He goes, and I just went, awesome, dude. You know, I've never smoked, but anyway, it was the coolest move I've ever seen. So they both pull out on the runway, and they got cleared for a scamp departure, which is basically an unrestricted climb. So and the F8 had a hard light. In other words, when you went to afterburn, it went boom. So there was a J57. It goes boom. These guys light them up, go down the runway, low transition, get to the end of the runway, 12,000-foot runway on 2-4 at Miramar, and they just pull into the vertical, about 70 nose highs, and they go, and they get through about 10,000 feet, and they separate a little bit, and then just continue up like this, and they go to 0 knots. And the airplanes go, where they go. And I went, how cool is that? You know? And Sheik in the back seat says, he goes, we're not going to do that. And I couldn't anyway, because the first takeoff in the Tomcat was Mill. So that's, I guess the first flight is one of the most memorable ones you have. I mean, because it is the first flight in the Tomcat. CQ, my first CQ was the first baby out of the training command to CQ a Tomcat on the Kitty Hawk. That was a big experience. So the thing I liked about it, I loved the airplane. It was a beast to fly. And I guess the thing I loved about it the most, when you fought the airplane, there was things you could modify in the airplane. You could pull some circuit breakers, specifically the mid-compression bypass circuit breaker to give you more thrust. You can pull the aux flap circuit breaker, which allowed you to put, we called it the big boys, put the flaps all the way down with the aux flaps would stay up, so you didn't get the drag from that, but you got the lifties out of the main flaps and the full slats. And so I got renowned for doing that. And of course, that was a prohibited maneuver, quote unquote, by NATOPS, but you know, you beg for forgiveness in the Navy. You know, you don't ask for permission. So, and I did it my whole career, and I never broke a jet because if you're very careful when you're with Tomcat, if you put the flaps down in a normal 1G environment at the normal airspeeds, like 225 knots or less, you put the flaps down, and then you leave them down until it's time to come up, and then once you stabilize, you bring them up when you're not under G and you're not fast. But you could take it out to 350 knots that way, and I did. I mean, I fought a brand new Hornet Marine guy, Top Gun guy, and they were up at the Oak Club at Miramar, not in Miramar, but at Oceana. And we were fighting against them. We had brand new F-14s right from the factory. And I go, so these guys are talking big about we'll spank the Tomcat and all this stuff. So I start talking to this guy and baiting him in. I go, I tell you what, tomorrow we have a 2v2 scheduled out, and you're in that flight, I'm on that flight. I tell you, we'll just make it a 1v1. 1v1, guns only, visual split, fights on the turn-in. And I said, but one engagement, whoever wins, assuming somebody wins, then the other squadron, the loser squadron, is going to buy all the cocktails and all the steamship round and all the shrimp we can eat on Friday night at the Oceana Oak Club. And that's back when the Oak Clubs were still a lot of fun. So we go to the brief, and then next day I launch out. Both squadrons fill the tax range because it's on the tax range. So we go out, and I go out, and I tell them I have to do a profile C for something, which was not the case. I just said, I just need to launch early and go down. Really what I do is I went all the way down to the south end of the range in Whiskey 72 and dumped. I dumped gas down to about 6,500 pounds. And then we do a little intercept, we take apart, we take a split. Meanwhile, I'm going like 300 knots, and then I'm bringing the boards back, but I manually sweep the wings back to like bomb, so he thinks I'm going 450 knots. So I take him out a little farther than normal. Fights on, we turn in, I got him bomb, and I'm at 250 knots, and I go, and then I immediately get below 225. Wings come forward, all the circuit breakers are out, MCB circuit breaks pulled, aux flap circuit breakers, the big boys come down, and then I go to full grunt, and I merge at about 325. I drive him into a one circle fight. I'm eating him up like a big dog. He's at 450 knots pulling 7 Gs, and I'm just turning in silent. What I hoped he would do, and what he did was he got antsy and he pulled at me hard. He bled all his knots, and then I went to vertical, and I had plenty of smack, like 100 knots plus over him, and I go, and he goes up and dies, and I did sort of a double inland thing, came down and gunned him in 42 seconds from the turn in. And he says, and I said, tracking. Of course, everybody in the tax range is seeing this, and they're going to, and I'm at 800 feet just drilling them. And then he says, okay, let's set up another. I said, no, I'm bingo. So, and the other deal was, if you lost, you had to do a straight in. You couldn't go into the break. So anyway, that's the things that I loved about the Tomcat, because there was stuff you could do with that airplane to turn it into a true BFM monster, particularly as you got later, we got the big engines. We got the B models and the D models, and I have a lot of time in those, but that was an awesome airplane. That's what the airplane's supposed to be in the whole time. So that was the thing I loved about the Tomcat. The thing I hated about the Tomcat the most was I never got to kill anybody with it. I mean, I chased a MiG for 200 miles, but I could never get close enough. I shot a Sidewinder at him just hoping he'd turn. He didn't, but anyway, that was the case. And so I never got to shoot anybody down. I mean, that was the thing I hated about the whole process the most. But it led to me in Desert Storm, as a COV of 33, it led to, I think I get a little emotional here, but the coolest thing I ever did for the Tomcat community was I came back and I take over Fighting Wing 2 days after I took over. The guys from Willie Bradley and Brown, WBB boys come down along with Lockheed Martin, then Martin Marietta, and they come in and they talk to me about putting a lantern pod on the Tomcat. And I my whole life I'd been the guy. I told my father was a Marine pilot, Corsair driver at the end of the war in World War II, and a test pilot. And he was very upset with me because I said I never want to drop a bomb. I wanted to be an Aryan fighter pilot and just shoot down 5 guys and get glory for the rest of my life and get my silver stars, and I'll be a happy guy, right? So, but in Desert Storm, I got very frustrated with not having the ability to kill people. So I even developed a unique strafe pattern where I would, 29,000 feet, I'd go to idle, board, slow down to 200 knots, go 90 degrees nose low, or about slightly up, slightly negative, like 92 degrees nose low, because the gun was canted up 3 degrees. And then bring the power up, keep the boards up, bring the power up, enough to get the gun gases to purge out of the thing, and then I shoot straight down at targets. 100 rounds, 100 rounds, 100 rounds, 100 rounds, 100 rounds, 100 rounds, and then pull out by about 11,000 feet. So I actually sent a paper out to Top Gun at the time and said, possible, fun way to strafe anyway. Didn't go very far, but I think I'm the only guy that ever did it. But I was able to hit some stuff on the ground with it, so including some bad guys in a truck shooting at me with a ZSU-23. But that was what I disliked about the Tomcat. We just didn't have the ability to shoot anybody. So anyway, the long story is, back to the Lantern. I'm the fighting wing commander, and I'm a brand new guy at the desk, and I go. They tell me we're going to do this, and I said, absolutely, I'm all in. So I took 2 or 3 guys, a couple maintainers, perfect, technician kind of guys, and then I took 2 guys that were test pilots, a test pilot and a Rio, who were op-eval kind of guys from VX9, and they VX4 at the time. Anyway, they come and it said, you run with these guys. So they had then. The engineers from Martin Marietta, then Lockheed Martin, in the process turned into Lockheed Martin. They were amazing guys. There were like three of them. And between my 2 guys and those 3 guys, 5 guys, in 6 months we went from a concept to dropping an LGB. And then, and a lot of things fell in our favor. One was we put a new P-TID in the back cockpits, put a big new display, a 12 by 12 display, and the magnification of the Lantern pod is directly proportional to the size of the display. The same display in a Strike Eagle with an 8 by 8 display was 8 power. We had 12 power. So the magnification and it had a lot of pixels in the new display, so the clarity was awesome. So we won out with that. And then the second thing was GPS. Because we were an analog airplane, we had an INS, but we couldn't talk to the thing, and the pod needed to be a digital event. So we weren't a 1553 bus type airplane then. So, and we couldn't tie the radar. We didn't have a ground mapping radar, so we didn't have a radar that we could layer into the feed information to the Lantern pod, so we can say, okay, point the pod over here. So what I said is, I had this little super decathlon, and I was flying a Garmin 92, brand new GPS unit. I said, can we put like a GPS unit in the thing? And he went, wow, that's a good idea. And I was too stupid. I'm not as smart as those guys. I just flew my little decathlon around with this little thing. I said, if we put a GPS unit, we know where we normally have mensurated coordinates of where the targets are, right? and I said, if we have that, and we have the ability for the Rio to type in the coordinates and then translate that to the pod, and then target the pod that way, it might work. So literally in a week, they figured it out. They got a GPS unit that was off the shelf, that was going in Apache helicopters, embedded it in the Lantern pod, which was awesome because it stabilized the Lantern pod. You didn't have to have an INS and all that, because and I went down and flew in this process. I went down and flew a Strike Eagle. Air Force was really kind to let me go down and fly a Strike Eagle. So I flew it, and it was a little jittery on occasion. And then they explained to me it's because the INS was talking over, the INS of the airplane is trying to translate down to the pod. And plus, our pod was out on our wing station, where was on a wing station, so we had much better field of view. We weren't fuselage blanking. We were a little better looking to the right, if looking to the starboard side as to the port side. But overall, you could come off target in either direction, which was the critical part, right? The Vipers and the Strike Eagles had to come off. They'd have to come off to the left all the time if the pod's on the right side of the airplane. So you could be less predictable. Anyway, so we did that, and then we made it work, and it's amazing. I dropped the first GBU, live GBU down at Vieques when Vieques was still alive and well in the bombing range, and blew up a tank, and then had Lockheed Martin make a movie. And then Airland at the time, Sweet Pea Allen had he was all over. He was an A6BN, and the A6 was going away, and the Hornets just had the Nighthawk pod, and that was not very good. So this brought a brand new capability, and so we just won a couple things, happened to turn out, and turned the airplane into my a national asset at the end. And you know, for a guy who was an Aryan fighter pilot, and I don't want to never drop a bomb, then I became the true believer, and I believe I truly helped bring this along. So. So we got the project, then we had to pay for it. So I go up and I talk to PMA 242 up there, and I go up there, well, okay, what's it going to cost us? Like $1 billion. A lot of money to integrate this whole thing across the board. And I go, oh. Well, what do we have in the books? And I knew I knew what I was doing because I already knew this. And that, you know, well, we're on the process of spending almost that amount of money to put AMRAAM in the airplane. And I go, we don't need AMRAAM. I got Phoenix bomb, I got Feeny bombs, I got Sparrows. I've been trying to shoot down somebody with a missile for my whole life, and it's not happening. I said, we need to go kill people on the ground. Let's take the $1 billion and put it over in the lander pod, forget AMRAAM. We got Sparrows and Feeny bombs stacked up like cordwood, and they're totally capable if we ever get to that point. And so that was fine. They bought into it, but I had to have the flag support. So I go to all the Navy sinks around the world. I go to SINCPACs, Secure, everywhere around. I go see all the 4 stars, and I give them the brief. And the last thing they say, that's awesome, Snort. How are we going to pay for it? And I told them how to pay. We're going to pay for it. And they went, cha-chang. And so every sink called Washington and said, make this happen now. And so we did this fleet prototyping thing as opposed to a normal acquisition process. So we went from a handshake on trying to make it happen at Fighter Wing, the 2 days after I took over, to 1 year later deployed it with VF-103. And that was, in my opinion, the coolest thing I ever did. I go to bed at night going, oh, it's good. So that was a thrill to have that happen. And then it proved to be an awesome airplane. We turned into FAC-As, we turned into, you know, FAC-A machines, and guys in the squadrons, we became the platform of choice. We became pathfinders for Hornet squadrons. We even had a squadron deploy, over there, and later on, and guide Vipers in F-16s. You know, one Tomcat would go out with 3 Hornets or 4 Hornets and go, there's your target, and then they'd use a laser spot designator laser spot tracker to find that, and they go, that I got it, and then the Tomcat would pick its own. So. Amazing story that the Tomcat really turned into a true national asset at the end of its life. So the bad part about it is it had the end of its life. I think if the Navy had been smart, we had followed on like the Air Force does with the F-15C, turning an F-15E and making all that, and upgrading the airplane continually as opposed to just jumping on the Hornet trail completely, we would have a much more capable, or a very capable force, you know, and I know that, and Grumman didn't help the process with their politics and stuff, but overall it was a great experience. So there you go.
That's awesome, man. Nice. God. Okay, ready to go. All right, take 2.
Okay, take 2. So let's move backwards in time a little bit to, you know, one of the most iconic movies that come out, I think, aviation movies, is Top Gun. And obviously there's a new one coming out now, and hopefully from the trailer I see, it's got some awesome footage in it. But that was an epic movie. I actually have scenes of me flying in it, but it was stock footage that Grumman took, and so you see the airplane land on the carrier from the cockpit view. That was me in VF-142. Anyway, but the movie comes out, and when the movie comes out, the summer of '86, I think, I can't remember the year, but anyway, I had just been selected as the Navy's Fighter Pilot of the Year and Tomcat Pilot of the Year and all of that stuff. So I had a lot of stuff. And I was the Airshow demo. I was a Tomcat demo pilot that summer. So obviously the Tomcat, when the movie came out, became a rock star by itself. So, and then I was the ultimate Tomcat groupie because I was flying the thing. So anyway, I had an awesome time, and it was truly like being a rock star. Like I said before, though, you could go, once you left the airplane in the airport, you got in your car and you went to the grocery store or whatever, then you're the same guy that had to take the garbage out. So it wasn't like you were a true rock star, but you had these little moments of being it. And one of the biggest things I had, the most cherished moments I had in that summer of being an airshow pilot, was that this one guy, he was enamored with the Tomcat, enamored with the movie, and then he got enamored with me anyway. So I was a Tomcat demo guy. So he trucked in, very wealthy guy, he trucked in a brand new Ferrari Testarossa, bright red. It had like 10 miles on it. And that was my car for like 10 air shows in a row on the East Coast. And great story, I'm at Pax River in this thing. It's the first time I got the car. And if you've ever been to Pax River, it's a very beautiful base. It's sort of on an island almost. And it's got this long peninsula that goes out with this road that goes around. It's about an 8 or 10 mile road, perimeter road that goes through these golf courses and pretty next to the water. It's just it's a perfect racetrack. That's all it was. So I'm in the Ferrari and I go, I gotta try it. So I go around this road. I'm doing maybe, whatever, 110, 120 on the straights and, around the corners as fast as I could do it. And little did I know there was a base policeman in a little tiny Nissan pickup trying to chase me down. So finally I come all the way around, I get next to the test pilot school and you have to cross an active taxiway, which there was a jet coming by, so I stopped for that. So he pulls up and he comes up to me and he says, lights come on, I pull over and he gets out and he says, "Sir, do you know how fast you're going?" I went, "Yes, of course I do. I was going like 100, 110, 120. And he said, and so he looked at me like flabbergasted that I even told the truth, right? And then I said, "Have you ever driven a Ferrari?" And the guy says, "No." And I said, "Well, you can't drive it slow." And then I said, "Would you like to drive one?" And he went, and he finally said yes. So then I let him drive it. So from then on, I had my own personal police escort everywhere I wanted. So it was a great summer that I flew with when that movie came out. And it was very good. Cost me a marriage, but that's another story.
God. All right, that is good. That's good. That is good.